Good evening. I'd like to share my celebration of the life of Robert Burns, Scotland's most acclaimed poet. People all over the world will be celebrating tonight the life of Rabbie, as he was known, a poet who's been dead for more than 220 years. The Burns Supper is a ritual that was started a few years after his death by some of his close friends as a sort of tribute to his memory. These celebrations have grown in popularity as people explore Scotland's national dishes, recite Burns's verse, toast with whisky, and they enjoy the rich heritage of which a poor farmer's son was a part of. Burns was born into a poor farming family in 1759. He tried to follow in the farming tradition, but he didn't do so well at farming. Perhaps his heart really wasn't into ploughing the fields. But he began to find fame as the ploughman poet, and this won him many influential friends and acquaintances. And like many of us today, he was well aware that it's not so much what you know, but who you know when it comes to job seeking. His main problem, however, was while that he was a genius as a poet and an educated young man, he had no work experience outside of farming. There were various ill-fated farming ventures, but they left him disillusioned with working on the land and, well, he just had to find a job. Burns had a plan to emigrate and begin a new life in Jamaica, but he didn't have the money he needed for the fare. A friend suggested that, well, maybe he should publish his poems in a book. And so came about Poems Chiefly in the Scottish Dialect. This sold well at 3 shillings, 15 pence. And it provided not only an income, but it spread the word of his poetry. And he later sold the copyright for 100 guineas. In today's money, that's probably somewhere around 19, 20,000 pounds. What a lot. He decided to put his education to better use, and he found himself a steady, well-paid job as an exciseman, or a gouger as they called them. An exciseman was employed by the government, and today we'd call them HM Customs and Excise, there to make sure people paid their taxes, especially where alcohol was related. Well, it wasn't a trade that was admired by the common people, and it would be fair to say that excisemen at this time were very unpopular, to say the least. But he must have been doing okay. After a couple of years, he got a promotion to Dumfries Port Division, and his salary went up to the princely sum of £50 per year. This was a high salary, almost twice the average at the time, and that together with his income from poetry placed him in the comfortable bracket for the first time in his life. Rabbie stayed in this job as his exciseman until he died at 37. He was often at odds with his superiors, so there was no more promotion. And some suggest that he wasn't really 100% comfortable being a taxman. And this could be illustrated in the poem, "The Deal's a Law with Excisemen." The devil has taken the taxman. So why is it the memory of Robert Burns is immortal? Is it only his poetry, his literary achievement? Well, he wrote about everyday matters. One of his best known poems is To a Mouse. wee sleekit coor timrin beastie, oh what panic's in thy breastie. This is him showing empathy after ploughing over a mouse's nest in the field. Was it the fun or the philosophy in his work? Well, his story, the Twa Dugs, is an imaginative tale about the conversation between a poor man's dog and a rich man's dog. Or maybe it's his bawdy tales, his romantic verse and social comment. I would suggest that to pick only one reason would be to underrate the others. Burns was much more than a literary great. In many ways, he was a rock star of the 1700s. Born into very humble beginnings, he used the best of what he had to make the best of what he could. And now, 225 years after his death, his fame continues and his fame grows. The protest songs of the 60s could never top lines such as, "Oh, would some power the gift to gie us, to see ourselves as others see us." That's a wee line from To a Louse. Or, "O ye wha are sae good yoursel, sae pious and sae holy, ye've nowt to do but mark and tell your neighbour's faults and folly." A wee quote from Address to the Uncle Good. This is a classic part of Burns's good common sense. He had a gift for pricking the bubbles of the pompous and bringing down those who, once in power, forget they're human like everybody else. Why did I compare Robert Burns to a rock star? Well, he shares a lot with the likes of Jagger, Lennon, McCartney and others who built a writing and performing career from their imaginations, from their observations and of course the determination to follow their course. Along with career success, even in the 1700s, there were side issues. Like present-day rock stars, well, they might have substance abuse. Rabbie wasn't known to take drugs, but he was no stranger to more than a drop of John Barleycorn. He was also very well known as a great romantic, and like many of our present-day rock stars, there's no accurate count on how many women were coming through their eye. What we do know, though, is that Rabbie tops the children count. 12 children by 4 women. Well, compared to Mick Jagger's 8 by 5, well, still, both can still claim only one legal marriage. Will we be singing Beatles or Stones songs in 225 years' time? Who can tell? But here we are, 225 years after he passed away, celebrating Robert Burns. As the poet himself would say, "Nae man can tether time or tide." Burns was a man who relished life. He laughed heartily and he valued his friends highly. I'll leave you with these thoughts and I'll offer you a toast. A toast to a truly great poet, to Scotland's best loved son and the human ideals that he embraced. To the immortal memory of Robert Burns. Cheers.